Sometimes I think I'm not traumatized enough to be a poet. Sometimes I think I'm not traumatized enough to have anything worthwhile to say, so I come up here and I end up saying things like, sometimes I think I'm not traumatized enough to be Arab, or to some of you, a terrorist. Sometimes I think I'm not traumatized enough to be Semite, or to most of you, the victim. Sometimes I forgot my line. But then I think, it's okay, I can just lie. Sometimes I think bullshit is way more convincing than the truth. Like, the reason all good artists are good artists is because they talk about trauma. And the reason I'm a good artist is because I talk about how good artists talk about trauma. Sometimes I think I'm probably not that good an artist. Sometimes I think it's really unfair that I had a good childhood. I mean, what kind of poet has a good relationship with their parents anyway, or a home for that matter, or food, or fucking roller skates? Sometimes I think if I had never had roller skates, I'd probably write better poems. Because as it turns out, when you roll through life like it's fucking easy, well, that makes you soft. And what I really want, is hard. In fact, sometimes I think I should just fuck everyone. Sorry, I mean fuck everything up. You know, just for better material. Like, just imagine the brilliant shit I'd come up with if I was a crackhead, or a flood survivor, or even better, a narcissist. Sometimes I think, God, so much wasted potential. Which is why sometimes I think of hurting myself. Wouldn't that be something? If I were both the terrorist and the victim. If I were my very own trauma. Isn't that the most poetic shit you have ever heard? Sometimes I think, do it for the plot. Other times I think, don't do it, also for the plot. Most times I think the plot is a big fucking joke, because we all end up 6 feet under anyway, and I've been under 6 feet my whole life, 5'2" to be precise. So why should I bother to learn how to stand tall when we're all gonna end up sharing the same bed? And no one really cares who's taller when you're laying dead. Which reminds me, sometimes I think rhymes are tacky as fuck. And if all your lines rhyme, well, that is sublime, but we probably wouldn't be very fine friends. Sometimes I wish I could say things to people's faces. Sometimes I wish I could say things to people's faces. Sometimes I wish I could say it to your face. How I wish that I wasn't born with my privilege. How I know that that in itself is its own privilege. Sometimes I wish I was broken enough to say it with my chest, because how can I call myself a poet if I shy away from thee? Sometimes I think bullshit is way more convincing than thee. Sometimes I think bullshit. And that is usually when I turn away from the mirror.